other.
Right.
Or maybe 50.
Um,
Yeah, that is Alexander Nevsky by Sergei Eisenstein. Haven't seen him in a while.
yeah, believe, as far as I can tell, his first proper talkie that was
Yes.
released anyway. I think he'd like shot some other stuff before this or whatever. But in terms of like
It was
feature length talking films, this is like his first one of those.
the first movie, like feature film that he'd made in 10 years.
Yeah. He co-directed it with Dmitry Vasilyev, who I'm not familiar with, but he has co-directing credit on this. And this movie is entirely based on a single battle from the 13th century in Russia. And the whole movie is about Germany invading Russia, which in 1938 was very pointed and was not accidental whatsoever. This is like kind of a propaganda movie, I think. I don't think it is. It's a propaganda movie.
It's propaganda in that it's using historical figures to comment on current day political issues. But I think you'd kind of be doing that regardless if you made a historical movie, you know?
But it also is like, a thing that really stuck out to me about this movie is like there's never really any like moment of doubt or sort of like self-reflection or even like criticism of our like heroic characters, like Alexander Nevsky, who is a heroic prince who like rallies the troops and fends off the terrible German invaders, is like portrayed as like he is always correct, he is always morally certain, like he never has doubts about his role in any of this. He's just like, nope, he's here to do a good thing for the people.
Yeah, I found this movie quite simplistic.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it is a propaganda movie, but like, you know, Man with a Movie Camera is a propaganda movie, and so is, I mean, maybe a better example is Battleship Potemkin. And I think those are both much more interesting movies than this one.
Well, so Man with a Movie Camera is propaganda in that it's like, look at all this cool shit we can do with cameras in Russia.
Well, it's also like, look at how cool Russia is, you know? And it also like has it has like an anti-Nazi scene as well.
True. I mean, I can get behind that. And then Battleship Potemkin, I feel like just has a little, I don't know, I feel like it just has a little bit more kind of narrative complexity to it than this.
Yeah. I think something that's interesting that's shared between those two movies is that neither of them really have a main character. Honestly, Battleship Potemkin even less so. But like, you know, I think part of the kind of Soviet sort of thing that it's trying to do is this sort of like collective thing. It's like everyone's working together to fight this battle.
Yeah.
And there's like, yes, it's about the kind of cool and good leader Alexander Nevsky, but he kind of, you know, he isn't in a lot of scenes.
Yeah.
He is a bit of a backseat in this movie.
Right. There's a bit of an ensemble in the characters of this. There's sort of a medieval challengers situation going on. To keep things topical and current. I think makes sense for Eisenstein's first talkie. I think this movie looks great and doesn't sound particularly great. It doesn't really use sound in interesting ways. Hardly
the sound
ever.
Design, I think, is probably pretty bad.
It's pretty lacking. There's a lot of scenes that there's things happening. There's just no sound, really. There's like a little bit of score here and there, maybe. But like, scenes of dialogue aren't really that, you know, they're not like interesting dialogue scenes the way that I feel like that the next movie we'll talk about is, or the way I think like Bringing Up Baby is, where it's like, this is like good dialogue. This is just people kind of like stating things a lot of the time.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of like Terje Vegan. In terms of just these like, you know, mythic historical figures who are just kind of saying vague things. I don't like this movie.
I like things about this movie. I think this movie is like really, I think it is really well directed in its when it is more or less a silent movie. Like, I think you can tell where Eisenstein's like interests were making this, because I think
Mm-hmm.
when there's like long stretches without dialogue, I think those are the best parts of the movie. Like, I mean, the big battle scene is the best part because
Disagree.
it's just a big battle scene.
I found myself so bored during that battle scene. It's an hour long. It's like an hour long,
It
and
is a bit long. It's true.
and it is like I it's big in scale, but to me, I just never felt like it. I never felt like I cared about what was happening. It didn't. I think it didn't very effectively do this kind of. I think with a lot, it had me thinking about big battle scenes and how the way to make them work is to kind of be zooming in and out between like linking
Mm-hmm.
small character based things with the larger battle, because a large battle is just a bunch of swords hitting each other.
Yeah.
And this was where I was really getting annoyed with the sound design, where it's just a straight hour of this like very
Wind
like
chimes.
very like yeah, it's like this very like dinky clicking together of hundreds of swords for like an hour, and it does not feel impactful.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. Is like I feel like there's definitely like some big wide shots that are just filled with extras that are like, wow, look at the size of this battle. And then there's some like kind of medium or close-up shots where you can really tell how like bad the fight choreography is, where like they're not even really hitting each other with the swords, like they're just kind of waving them around. They're just kind of bonking each other a little bit. And there's like a couple times where they use handheld camera shots to really kind of like sell the chaos. And I was like, could have used more of those, but
Yeah.
I don't know, I like things about this movie more than I like this movie itself, I guess.
Well, what did you like about the battle scene?
I like the lead up to it. I like the kind of like seeing the troops amassing on the ice. It feels very Battle of Hoth, which I think might have even been a direct inspiration on a little bit of like seeing like kind of coming out of the horizon, like the enemy armies approaching.
That was a good shot. Yeah.
I like how there are like little character beats interspersed throughout it. I like a lot of the design of particularly the sort of Teutonic like German knights that are in these like absurd not over design, but these very elaborate costumes that are like,
they're all very like Crusades kind of looking things.
I don't know how like historically accurate they are, but like all of their helmets are like super crazy looking and elaborate. They're kind of like rank and file soldiers all have these helmets with like a cross in them, like, which I think is pretty much based on a real kind of Crusader knight design. But I think it might be a little exaggerated here. But then there's the kind of like boss knights that have these like crazy like animal carving helmets and things.
They're the ones with the what is it, the revenge system from Shadow of Mordor,
Right, yes, exactly. Much like how the kind of heroic characters are kind of presented as just like they are heroic, they are correct, they are right. The villains in this are like the most villainous, like awful, inhuman. Like they throw toddlers into fire, which I mean, looking at Russia, looking at Germany, it's like, I guess it hadn't really happened. Well, there was some stuff in World War I that was bad, but like it does feel kind of spookily prophetic at certain points where like the villains are like burn everything, and it's like,
I mean, the Nazis were already doing bad stuff
also
before
true.
They officially declared war. As far as being a propaganda movie, this kind of historically, like, I don't know, historically infused propaganda movie or propaganda infused history movie, it's basically like Russia's good and cool, and Germany is religious and evil.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of like Christian iconography with the villains, a lot of crosses. There's like the villainous bishop whose hat has like barely disguised swastikas on it.
Yeah,
they like add in like an extra little thing onto it, but it's like you can tell that they just like drew an extra part over it almost. I don't know, there's some good kind of John Ford framing with the horizon at the bottom. I just feel like a lot of the kind of like compositions of
Yeah.
around the battle are really, I mean, throughout the whole movie, look really nice.
I really like the opening shots of the movie that are showing like
Yeah.
the kind of remains of a battlefield with skulls and that kind of thing
Yeah.
lying around. Those shots were very cool,
But also
and I was like,
combined with like pastoral like beauty too.
yeah, it was really neat. And you know, I I just have a really hard time with these historical epics, especially the kind of ones with big battles. Like I just like have a really hard time caring. But when this started and I was seeing those shots, I was like, okay, all right, let's get going here. And then it quickly got boring.
I think I was this movie held my interest more than I thought it might. I was definitely going to. I was like, oh, this like historical war movie or whatever. We'll see. Maybe it was just the fact that it's like technically very accomplished that I was like, oh, it's cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like stuff happening in the foreground and the background in this movie that I thought was cool and interesting that I feel like we don't see that much of. I think this movie is at its best when it kind of lets the imagery speak for itself and is just sort of like presenting you with things and isn't really trying to, when it shows and doesn't tell, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a cool bit at the end of the battle where all the bad guys fall through the ice. I thought that kind of rules.
That was fun. Yeah. Having just watched Last Crusade, very similar.
Hey, there you go.
The ground cracking and the Nazis falling through.
Yeah. Nazis falling through the ground. Always fun. I do think it's kind of funny that it almost feels like the message of this movie is like fuck around and find out. Like this movie ends with just like, hey, you thought you could invade Russia? Nice try, buddy. Not today.
I mean, they're not wrong though.
Yeah.
Like historically speaking, they are correct.
Historically speaking, both before and immediately after this movie, they were proven very correct. Of like, do not invade Russia. It is a bad idea. Another thing that stuck out to me is there's a bit where someone yells, "Avenge us." I think it's like when the Teutonic Knights are like burning down the village. Which reminded me of the scene in Red Dawn when the guy's like, "Avenge me." And I looked into it, and that is an explicit reference to this movie in Red Dawn.
Oh, wow.
Because Red Dawn, a movie about Soviets invading the United States, also weirdly like similar in tone and structure and like theme to this movie, even though it's flipped and Russians are the bad guys in that. After the Soviets have occupied the sort of like picturesque American town in that movie, on the movie theater marquee, it says Alexander Nevsky. So, like, the Soviets are playing this movie in the movie theater. And then also there's a scene where someone's like, "Avenge me!" So it's like, clearly John Milius had seen this movie when he made that.
I thought the inclusion of the Mongols was interesting. Like, right in the beginning of the movie, they were kind of fresh off of fighting off the Mongol invasion of Russia, and then he kind of Alexander is kind of living his pastoral life in his fishing town, and some Mongols come up and everybody wants to fight them, and he's like, there's bigger fish to fry right now. Like, we gotta fight the Germans instead.
Yeah, it's like the Germans are amassing troops. Maybe we should worry about that before the Mongols. There's a bit where Alexander Nevsky says, "Get my princely attire ready," which might just be a weird translation because all the dialogue is in Russian. But I thought that line was funny.
Well, I mean, he does get his princely attire. He does come back and he looks a little more princely.
That he does. So yeah, I didn't love this movie, but I thought it was I thought it had some cool stuff in it, and also just like is interesting historically for like a Soviet movie that is like, hey, Germans, we don't like them. They're trying to start shit, and they should.
Basically, for the last decade, we've been seeing movies just nervous about the Germans.
What do you think about it? They just had a war, like not that long ago.
I mean, I think this kind of lines up more with the existence of the Nazis than anything else, but
Mhm.
it was probably only a decade or so after the end of World War One, when movies were going like, the Germans are about to do it again.
Yeah.
Like, we got to be worried about
Well, I mean,
this.
yeah, it was like between like what 1919 and 1929, which like that is like the Weimar era when it was like Germany had kind of had its shit together a little bit, and then yeah, starting around 1929, 1930 is like when it started to get real bad.
Yeah.